Welcome everyone. Just as a reminder, this presentation is being recorded for educational purposes. It will be posted on our YouTube channel later this week, Artivism for Shared Humanity. Let's see. Welcome to Artivism, the Power of Art for Social Transformation. As we come to the closing of Season 11, marking Artivism's 5th year, we would like to thank our sponsors, Adelphi University and Gottesman Library at Teachers College, Columbia University. Artivism has featured over 185 global, multi-generational presenters, including doctors, lawyers, filmmakers, musicians, artists, poets, students, and many others. The growing network of artivists share the same vision to inspire social change through their diverse creative processes, and as Artivism's bottom line states, to nurture change for a more dignified, inclusive, and meaningful coexistence. Artivism, the Power of Social Transformation, curates an annual multi-venue exhibition, and this spring, this exhibition is entitled Reimagining the Future, Nurturing Change for a More Dignified and Meaningful Coexistence. Please visit our website at www.delphi.edu/artivism for more details. But Carolina will tell us a little bit more about the upcoming exhibition, how to submit after this presentation later. I want to take this opportunity to thank all past and present artivists and to thank you for your creativity, your dedication, and courage. It takes courage, right, to do what we all do, to take action. And to everyone joining us today, welcome. We affirm our commitment to amplifying the power of the arts to redress inequities, uplift voices from every background, and inspire social change, pushing society forward. We begin today with today's Artivism Ambassador, Ronald Lindsay Murdoch-Oats, a community curator and ecosystem designer from rural South Africa, who treats entrepreneurship and organizational architecture as an art form, from delivering bespoke communication training to executives at Google, Mercedes-Benz, and Deutsche Bank, to building Sentience, Uzinco, and Other Side, 3 ventures reimagining how professionals grow, how local communities benefit from travel, and how grassroots businesses sustain themselves. Ronald designs systems that reach people, create belonging, and enable long-term structural change. You can find Ronald's full bio and his initiatives, perhaps websites or resources. Later on this week, it'll be on the Artivism Ambassador tab on our website. Welcome, Ronald.
Thank you so much. I've got a great opportunity here. I jumped in relatively last minute, mostly through my connection to Flo, who's obviously been connected to all of you guys. So first of all, thank you for the opportunity. Really, the first place that I'd like to start, I guess, is thinking about sentience, thinking about its relationship to Other Side and its relationship to Tomasini Productions. Sentience is a guild. The idea there is it's one of the oldest forms of professional organization. I think where there's never been a time where it's better to reimagine it and revisit this concept today. What we're trying to figure out how to do is create long-standing career development. We're trying to reduce the kind of individualism that we're constantly experiencing in the context of, professional work at large. Flo and I both view work at large as a collective, collaborative exercise. We're trying to build organizations. We're trying to build systems for change, ultimately. But really, this is relating to Flo, Tomasini Productions and his work. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and get started with a little introduction to him. So, about 3 years ago, I was in northern Thailand trying to figure out how to get Sentience, this digital guild, off the ground. And I crossed paths with a French filmmaker who was there documenting social impact projects in the region. We got talking, and it was immediately clear that we were asking the same questions, but from completely different directions. I was building systems for human potential, and he was pointing a camera at it. I'm Ronald Murdoch-Oats. I'm a serial founder and entrepreneur from rural South Africa, and that filmmaker was Florian Tomasini. Those conversations became Other Side. It grew out of a shared conviction that communities are entitled to their own infrastructure, their own voice. It's a nonprofit incubator combining social impact marketing, mentorship, training, and funding pathways to help small businesses and community-led ventures not just survive, but scale. Through his creative agency, Tomasini Productions, Florian has spent over a decade across 15 countries, producing more than 600 videos, films, and documentaries, reaching up to 3 million views and generating over $2 million in value for the brands, NGOs, and social enterprises he's collaborated with. But you can't simply define his art and activism by his portfolio and their metric performance. After his project concluded in Thailand, Flo decided to return to Brazil, where his creative process originally got its wings. There, he spent the past few years working alongside Brazilian favelas and indigenous communities as a foreigner, a gringo, an outsider. His 2025 documentary, Mulheres que Regeneram Territorios, or Women Who Regenerate Territories, presented at Casa da Cultura Laura Alva in Rio de Janeiro, is the most recent result of his agency's philosophy and working process. It's a film made with communities, not about them, building on long-term relationships, ethical fieldwork, and a genuine transfer of narrative power to the women at the center of their own stories. Other side is where Sentience's mentorship and training systems and Tomasini Productions' visual storytelling converge around systematic social justice, equity, and scalable impact. We're both incredibly grateful to ARTIVISM, Adelphi University, and Columbia University for giving us a platform to explore our shared perspectives with you. And today, Florian takes one of these fundamental questions head on. Who has the right to tell the story? Here's Flo.
Nice. Thank you, Ron. All right, so here I go. So I want to tell you about a boy I once filmed. I was teaching photography through a photo studio I created in collaboration with a social project in Rocinha, the largest favela of Rio. This kid, who was around 10 years old, started to work in the project, but no one wanted to work with him. The way my collaborators framed it was he was uncontrollable. No discipline, didn't listen to anyone's direction, refused support repeatedly. But he took an interest in my course. Step by step, I learned his story. He lost his parents, jumping around from house to house for food, to eat, and a place to sleep. He's the core example of the kind of kids that's common in systematically disadvantaged communities, who has the bare minimum support, care, love, but everybody's like, he's a pain in the ass, messy boy, no discipline. Of course, he's not following any rules or listening to authority. He was growing up in a chaos. One day, I was with the kids doing my courses, etc. The mother of one of the other kids in the project kissed him on the cheek. His response spoke volumes. His body, his hands, his face contorted as he struggled to understand what it means to receive affection and what he's supposed to feel receiving this affection, right? This picture for me is one of my favorite picture ever. After a year and a half working in this place, I connected a local photographer teacher from City of God, Cidade de Deus. Someone from the chat already been there, right? So yeah, year and a half in city, creating a photo studio, bringing a photographer from the City of God to take over my position. I could not practically continue in this role, and of course, a local photographer with years of experience was in a much better position to teach kids from community like his own. I felt with the new project added to my portfolio, which was a significant step in my career back in the days, helped me to secure new opportunities and continue to make what I felt was a positive impact in different spaces around Brazil and the rest of the world. But last year, I was chatting with the CEO of the social project from Rocinha, this favela where I had my photo studio, right? And I was trying to reconnect with them. He saw this kid around the area with a gun. And now he's about 14, 15 years old and is obviously taking part of a gang and likely moving drugs through the streets. So when I take a look back now, I think that project was kind of useless. Not completely, But none of these kids became photographers. None of them were emancipated through our work. The local photographer had to return to driving motor taxis in the favelas because the social project could not sustain him and his family. I know his name now, he's Richard, but only because I sent a message to the social project a little while ago as I was developing this presentation for you. Richard and his peers had their story told for them by me. I was trying my best to make a positive impact in this space, but at the time, I was too naive to actually recognize what the real long-term consequences of my work were on the community I've been part of. Looking at over a decade's worth of work all across the world, I see some growth in some places, partly because of my work, partly because of forces beyond my control. I also see erosion, degradation, tragedy, heartbreak, again, partly because of my work, because of forces that myself and these communities have no influence over. So many folks like myself come into these spaces. We enjoy, we look at it, selling communities hope and dreams, but without any material strategy to achieve it. They realize and recognize the full scale of challenges they're facing. And like me, they end up leaving and never coming back. Not because they're evil or bad people, but because the challenges are huge. And unlike the community itself, they can leave when they want to. I want to make it clear, I'm not speaking from a position of authority on this idea. I'm sitting with it and I'm trying to digest it, and it continues to eat me alive. Every day is a fight. Today, gunshot. I'm living around, gunshot. People stuck in the house. It's every day back to my face. Years ago, a little girl from the studio took this photograph of Richard and showed it to me with eyes full of pride. I had to choke back the tears until I got home, where I looked at it again and just broke down. Of everything I've done in my whole career, this picture taken by an 8-year-old girl with a camera too big for her hands is the most impactful piece that my work has ever produced. And this kid is a drug dealer now. This is so... Every now and then I come across it in my drive and I still feel it sink into the pit of my gut. Part 2. So this picture, for example, was taken when I was giving photo classes in another favela in 2018. And I met these kids a week and a half ago partying, and this guy is a tourist guide in Rio de Janeiro. So that's a good success. Like it. It's been more than a decade now. I've been trying to understand the global social work ecosystem, its rules, its challenges, its inequities, and my participation in all of this. I see projects repeatedly fail, my own and others. Why? Well, first, because most filmmakers are not trauma-informed about the communities they've been involved in, or even worse, invited themselves into. Second, it's always the same. There are thousands of hours of film framing the experiences of communities and their people as degraded, oppressed, and downtrodden. Not only is this narrowing the experiences of these people, but it is often re-traumatizing. How would you feel if the whole world only saw you and your communities through this lens? No opportunities, community filled with violence and hopelessness, when in fact, when speaking to members of these communities, especially in Brazil today, the perspective is often quite the opposite. The women I worked alongside for months were obviously aware of their own lived experiences. I'm in no position as a French guy from global north to tell you or them what they need. Many know what they need, and where there are gaps, the world I come from is incredibly well resourced and well connected. That's how I was able to secure the opportunities I've had the privilege of accessing. What these women and other communities have expressed to me in this, I do not have these privileges. If I'm being invited to participate in these communities, the least I can do is to build bridges. between community members and global industry, international perspective, access to information and spaces that they have been systematically excluded from. They should be the ones speaking here today, but instead I am. Just a little bit of water. So where I've seen success, it's always been about training, mentorship, economic emancipation, and entrepreneurship. I'm almost at the point where I no longer want to be filming communities myself, or at least keeping that to the bare minimum. I want to be in a position where I'm collaborating with community members, providing them with skills, perspective, and financial resources to film, produce, and economically benefit from their own stories. Not only this, but ensure that members of that communities are equipped to the degree that they can train other members to do the same. Snowball effects. In collaboration with Instituto Opaba and the women in Babylonia and Mangueira, Tomasini Productions has produced a documentary, Mulheres que Regeneram Territórios, Women Who Regenerate Territories, or in English, Keep the Faith. I started to connect more deeply with one of these women, Priscilla. I think she's trying to join the call. I'm not sure if you received the invitation, RG, but I'm throwing the information. I think she's texting me, trying to go in. So I started to connect more deeply with one of these women, Priscilla, who is here in the audience with us, or she's coming. Right now, I'm trying to connect her project Dra Dayo and Mai da Serena Odara with funding from Arte, a major state-funded European channel dedicated to culture arts, and depth documentaries. The producer I'm teaming up with to make this project happen is in the call as well. She's Marguerite. So she's around us, Marguerite. Nice. We've made contact with an amazing woman at Arte who leads major project for the channel. Things are looking positive. We met last week to finish up the fundraising dossier, which we've now submitted. While we wait for approval over the next 2 months, other side is developing the system, processes, and protocols we need to effectively support her and other projects like hers. So why should you trust us? Why people should trust us?
Família, para mim, é o que eu estou vivendo aqui, nesse lugar, no Morro da Babilônia. Eu acredito que é de dentro para fora, mas na minha mente, se eu deixo de exercer a saúde, o bem-estar para essas mulheres da favela, da comunidade, periféricas, mães, meninas, crianças, eu não tô sendo útil, entende? Esse é o meu pensamento. E aí dentro disso vem a comunidade, vem o acolhimento, vem a rede, vem esse exercício de troca, né? Porque a vida é uma troca. Olá, Monique! Oi, tudo bom? Tudo ótimo. E você, como está? Tudo bem.
Porque é isso também que a sociedade quer que a gente faça, que a gente cada vez mais seja vítima, né? Seja a mulher vulnerável, a mulher que está frágil, a mulher que é fraca. Não, então eu potencializei toda a minha história e hoje coloco, né, para o mundo, para o universo e para quem chega a mim e a quem também eu vou chegar essa potência, né?
Ela veio bem emoção, né?
É minha mãe, né?
Obrigada, Pri.
Obrigada a vocês.
Meninas.
Um ano. Sou doula, educadora perinatal, sou terapeuta integrativa. Meu foco são mulheres, principalmente mulheres negras e pessoas com útero, no meu trabalho. Mas eu sou a Pri, a preta, mãe, correria.
Você tá por aí.
Tô aí,
ela.
fazendo a vida
Você
acontecer.
tá por aí com ela. Você.
Esperando 1 milhão na conta.
Ah, vai chegar, se Deus.
50% de mulheres negras brasileiras chefiando os seus lares. Isso quer dizer o quê? Por mais que tenha até um companheiro, mas são essas mulheres que sustentam seus filhos, sua casa, sua saída, sua distração, enfim, faz tudo. E hoje eu me incluo dentro desse número, né? A gente vive hoje um momento de muito incentivo ao empreendedorismo, mas pouco ensino sobre como empreender. Então, muitos de nós, como eu mesma, entra numa bola de neve ali com questões do CNPJ, não sabe como usar, não sabe o que fazer, não sabe os recursos que se tem, que você pode buscar. Eu, enquanto uma pessoa buscadora, eu vou abrindo os meus caminhos, né? Eu realmente acredito que tudo é possível quando a gente se assenhora na nossa história. O sonho daqui a 10 anos é que a Delas Daiô, que é o nome do meu negócio, tenha alcançado o nível nacional, esteja em vários estados acontecendo essa jornada, né, esse programa de saúde e bem-estar, que a minha filha ela esteja já colhendo os frutos, né? Porque daqui a 10 anos ela vai estar entrando na puberdade, é uma outra etapa. Então, tá com ela do meu lado, firme e direcionada. E no meu âmbito pessoal, eu almejo uma satisfação financeira, né? Isso que eu quero daqui a 10 anos, sair do fluxo da energia, às vezes da sobrevivência, sabe? E realmente tá frutificando através do meu trabalho.
So this is the next, it's a snippet of my documentary, Keep the Faith, that was in Ipanema. It was like 8 months of work and investigation and social integration within the favelas. So why should people trust us? You know, like, why should they trust us? That's the question, huh? I want to be honest with you about the ecosystem we all operating in, including me. This is not false modesty, it's a structural observation. NGOs and filmmakers, we are motivated by our own career advancement, funding, and institutional survival. Even with the best intention, our goals are frequently mismatched with the long-term outcomes of the communities we work with. We live, communities stay. Representation without infrastructure changes nothing. A documentary about poverty doesn't create jobs. A film about favela doesn't build a school. Visibility is not the same as power. The only thing that can change this equation is when communities control the resources, the narrative and the infrastructure. If we have a role at all, it is to accelerate that, not to lead it. This is what Ron and I are hoping to achieve with Other Side alongside people like Priscilla. Community-based podcast, that's the first step. Through Tomasini Productions, we establish community podcasts and advertising studios, I'm coming there, focused on integrating the microeconomy. We use this platform and our relationships with social projects to run market research and understand exactly what this community and its local entrepreneurs need to be successful. Second step, the mentorship and the training. Sentience uses this data to design and deliver mentoring, training, and support programs for local entrepreneurs in digital literacy, financial management, business development, software engineering, and more, with established professionals in each field. Third, finding funding. All three companies collaboratively co-manage social media, crowdfunding, and community funding campaigns for these entrepreneurs, while also securing relationships with local and international grant funders. Fourth, secure preferential rates. Other side approaches supplier, manufacturer, and service providers, providing access to a plug-and-play social impact marketing infrastructure in exchange for discounts or goods and services, enabling us to massively de-risk deals and future ventures at scale by passing savings down to supply chain. Fifth, seed funds and next round. We monitor and support the growth of these businesses using a small equity stake in each, less than 10%, to seed fund the next round of projects. This means either franchising the existing businesses into other communities or establishing new businesses. So what are the researchers actually saying right now? The evidence-backed claims. Yep. Claim 1. Community-controlled narrative produces measurable outcome. When communities control their own story, it shows up in the data. Community-based participatory research, CBPR, links participatory documentary practice to measurable gains in political agency and advocacy access, psychological well-being, and reduce isolation, community cohesion, and self-representation. The evidence includes Aguayo 2019 work on men and masculinities published by Oxford University Press. I want to be transparent about the limits of this evidence. It's correlation research, not controlled trials. Context, scale, and community readiness all affect the outcomes. Second claim, the community entrepreneurship in favela already works when it's community-led. When the infrastructure exists, communities build extraordinary things. This isn't just an idea, it's already happening. Kufa, whose CEO we're in contact with right now, I've been meeting him for different events, amazing people as well. Central Única das Favelas, Kufa, was founded in Rio in 1999 and now operates across Brazil and internationally, combining culture, sport, and economic development. Built from within, not imported. G10 Favelas is a network of the 10 largest favelas in Brazil, run by community leaders, not external NGO. They negotiate directly with government and private sector on their own terms. Aliança Empreendedora supports thousands of community entrepreneurs across Brazil with documented increases in income, household stability, and intergenerational mobility when the right resources reach the right people. Other sides' contribution is not direction, it's connection. Connection to resources, networks, and infrastructure the community doesn't yet have access to. Claim 3. The honest caveat. Even participatory filmmaking research shows that facilitators and community frequently have divergent motivations. The filmmaker wants a good film and a career boost. The founder wants an impact metric to report. The community wants material change in their daily life. They are not the same thing. Research confirms what experiences already show. Impact is possible, not guaranteed. And the gap between possible and the actual is usually filled or not filled by what happens after the cameras leave. That's exactly why we keep asking, what else can we do? So different option. Option A, and I want to give you a framework, 2 approaches to this work. Think about which one describes you. Option A, considering the ethic. 3 pros. Briefly, because you already see them: authentic, trusted access to stories, long-term community relationship, and sustainable impact that outlast the film. But the cons are real and I won't dismiss them. It's slower, it takes years, not months. It requires genuine surrender and of editorial control. It's harder to found in short cycle grant structures. And even the research we just looked at confirms outcomes are uncertain. You can do everything right and still not get the results you hoped for. Option B, don't think about the ethics. The pros here are genuinely real for you as filmmaker, and I want you to take them seriously. You move fast, you publish fast, that's genuine competitive advantage in this space. You retain more editorial freedom and creative control, and you fit more easily into the funding timelines that most institutions actually operate on. The cons, and I will say them briefly: risk of harm to your subjects, no sustainable community access after the project ends, maintaining the exact extraction cycle. We're all here because we want to break, and work that doesn't last beyond the film. So trying to have a conclusion there. If you consider the ethics, you get most of the pros of both A and B, and fewer of B's cons. Ethics isn't the cost of doing this work with integrity. Ethics is the mechanism that makes the work actually work. But I want to be honest about the limits of this conclusion. The research is promising, not definitive. Projects like Priscilla's are live, but not proven at scale. Other side is building, not built. I'm not standing here telling you we solved this. We're still asking the question. Priscilla doesn't need us to tell her story. She needs us to connect her to the rooms she's been systematically kept out. The dossier is submitted, the conversation with Arte is open, other side is building the infrastructure, but Richard is still out there. The little girl who took that photograph is still out there. The local photographer who went back to the motor taxi is still out there. I've been trying to understand this for more than a decade. I don't have final answers, but I know what the wrong direction looks like now, and I'm trying to stay pointed the other way. So we want to ask you, what else can we do? I'm done. Q&A. I need water. Ron, maybe you can also join.
I'm here to jump in.
Yes.
If there's any questions to get us started. We've got a couple prepared. But
okay.
Definitely
Excuse me, can you hear me?
Yeah, perfectly.
Okay. Well, this is very impressive. And for me, this is all the lessons that I have learned before, not so much at the time that I was in Brazil, that I was not so trained to do what I was doing, but all the work that I've done in developing countries, that I've been to war zones, to places like, to the poorest communities, but with funding from US government. And all the issues that we have, not so much exactly ethics, but how can you do what needs to be done with the time frame and the funds you have. So everything's limited to what the funding mechanism is telling you to do or wants you to do, and how much freedom of movement you have to actually do the things that people really need, not only what the funding mechanism is telling you what should be done, for how long, and who is doing it. So I became very frustrated with all this working in this area. And then when I was in grad school, just to open something, I work with Paulo Freire. For those who are educators, they're familiar with the work of Paulo Freire in Brazil. And then he was in exile, ousted by the Brazilian government at the time. And I was in graduate school, and I just, by chance, I started working with him because he had a contract at the university, University of Massachusetts in Amherst. And I knew the work of Augusto Boal. So Paulo Freire wrote the Pedagogy of the Oppressed. For anyone working with communities, is a must-read book because it talks about what Florian was saying, like the dichotomy between the haves and have-nots, or the people who with the best intentions try to help, but they don't fit in. Even me, when I was in Brazil, I come from the middle class, I'm white, work in the favelas, I was really the other, I was the outsider. With the best intentions, I could not really do anything different. The only thing that I did correctly was connecting with the communities before and not coming to present something to them, but for them to help me put something together that would be good for their kids. So they're involved in the process. So I would say, yes, participatory action research is a great thing to do, but it takes a long time. So what I did in the US, I tried to bring something that was applied in developing countries, that came from Paulo Freire, from the Brazilian educators doing theater on the streets, or doing education with cultural groups at places where people need education, with doing like literacy, teaching people how to read and write. But not only to read and write, but to have a voice, to be able to vote, to be able to understand what's going on around them. And that was life-changing for a lot of people. We have to give something that they can use, not only at the time that you're working with them. It's one of the things that I've learned. So my question is, knowing all that, and acknowledging all the limitations, what suggestions you have for filmmakers, for educators, for people who are doing research, who need to have the funding to be able to do something with the local communities, to involve these local communities in places, like, well, you mentioned the place, Rocinha, Cidade de Deus, like you're also taking a risk. Those places can be extremely dangerous. So what suggestions do you have? Because I would like to be involved in something like that, but I don't know from where to start, and how we can do what you want to do ethically and involving the local people and applying. I like the idea of using the arts, like arts-based research of like
Yeah.
filmmaking. I created this photo dialogo. That's a way of trying to understand what people perceive of social reality, because I became very aware that my social reality or how I perceive the world is not the same as somebody who lives in the top of the Rocinha, who has to go up and down, selling drugs to survive. So that was not what I had. So I have to understand from their perspective how they name their situation, how they see what's going on around them, because we come from very different worlds. So we have to create a language to be able to communicate. So I started using this like life-based stories and interviews and creating drawings based on that and representing the drawings to them. Could be theater as well, like what Augusto Boal did. So what do you suggest? How can we do that, in a way that's ethical?
I see from what I've heard from Priscilla, she's quiet, she's observing, but she's here. And the last conversation I had with her, and I had this conversation with a lot of people as well, is first of all, as you said, people need to vote, people need to be invested in the country to understand how to develop the country, and this idea of connecting them to the territory, because they are from the territory, but they don't necessarily identify to the territory. So I think that's the answer I have in my mind to your question, is education through the conscientization of who they are from their territory and how they represent their territory. Ron, I guess.
Yeah, like I tend to take the practical angle. Like I'm South African. I grew up in a really, really rural area in the middle of nowhere. Now, that being said, obviously, I have to appreciate the structural politics of being a white passing South African, right? Very relevant, very real. But practically, as a person that's tried to become a global citizen and an entrepreneur working in global spaces, I am systematically excluded from access to, for instance, Stripe, the conventional pay gate system that any entrepreneur from Europe or the US has access to. That has a variety of knock-on effects, right, in terms of my ability to access all sorts of technology and systems and so on and so forth that are available elsewhere. But there are a number of proprietary and open source projects that are enabling, for instance, direct crowdfunding. One of them is a French NGO called LibrePay. They're an open source project that was founded, I believe, in 2017. And well, now they're nearly a decade old. And for an open source project to last for about a decade is a pretty incredible thing just to start. But the system that we're working with in the context of Other Side to get us started is a system called Buy Me a Coffee. It's a simple system. Basically, anybody in the world can use a card to contribute, right? And what creates really the impetus behind that funding mechanism is going to be what ends up being a mass marketing strategy via social media. That's what Flo and I are going to be collaborating on. Now, this seems a little bit, how do I put it, underwhelming. But I think it's worthwhile inviting a little bit of perspective here, because what I'm seeing all over social media, Instagram, YouTube, and so on and so forth, is an incredibly large number of self-funded projects via crowdfunding mechanisms, not using conventional crowdfunding platforms like Kickstarter and so on and so forth, but direct funding from the communities, directly monetizing the communities. And so, for instance, one of the projects that I'm aware of is a African-American artist called Kamal, who started publishing his work via Patreon about 3 or 4 years ago. And currently, and he's quite transparent about this, he earns $350,000 a month off of crowdfunding. It's incredible. The reality is that there's a significant and large number of people all over the world who are not as interested, not as capable because of the variety of commitments that they're involved in, but do have the resources available to them to contribute what is ultimately a negligible amount of money to them to a project that makes them feel good, if we're honest with ourselves, right? And if we can figure out how to create real impetus behind mechanisms like that, I think that that's where the magic happens. Then, of course, comes the politics, because how do we distribute that funding in a way that's equitable, right? Especially where we're going through the process of monetizing the stories of the communities that we're working in. That's obviously a question that we haven't answered yet. I hope that helps. That's useful and interesting.
And I love and this thing like connecting people, right? Because Ron has skills I don't have. You know, I'm the guy from the ground.
And vice versa.
I'm the guy with the artistic vision and connection, journalism, and he's the nerd creating all the system for the NGO. I don't have this spirit, and I don't have to. You know, that's good. We all. I'm from France. He's from South Africa, and this is yeah. And we work here in Brazil.
Yeah. That's it.
Florian, are you in Brazil now?
Yeah. Rio de Janeiro.
Oh, in Rio. That's my hometown.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Nice. Yes, Cidade de Deus, City of God.
Okay, so you live in the Cidade de Deus?
I'm living in a favela close to Vidigal. I don't know if you
Okay.
know this one. It's close to Leblon, right? Leblon area.
That's near the Rocinha.
Yeah, but it's on the side. It's like on the side. The two mountains, you know, the two brothers is on the side.
You guess the best view of Rio from the top. That's
Yeah,
what we did some of our plays at the very top that you can see the ocean.
The rich people, they're not happy about it. They want this space, right? But they trying to keep them out since a long time. But no,
Yeah.
people is fighting. People's fighting. Great. Thank you for the question, though.
Yeah, great question, for sure.
Well, this is a great presentation. And if, as I was telling my dear friends, Angie and Carolina, it's like I was a research faculty, I am still, but next month I'm out and I'm looking for what can I put, like the skills that I have, the experience that I have for a different
What
job.
else can we do, right? What else
Right.
can we do, you know?
Yeah.
That's it.
So, and something that, I mean, if I have a chance to collaborate with any of you, I'll be very happy to do that. And the things that I've done in the past and the things that now I know better in terms of the research, you know, what might work better. But the process is slow. We cannot do magic, you know, in a short term. Somebody gives me $100,000. Okay, you have 1 week to do something. Nothing is going to happen. Doesn't matter how much you have.
And if anything happens in that context, this is what's problematic. Like what I've found repeatedly, you know, mentoring and consulting in a communication space with, you know, executives and senior managers from some of the largest companies in the world. The biggest problem is not failure. The biggest problem is rapid success, because rapid success produces inequities by default, right? It's incredibly challenging to lead or manage a project which is receiving an incredible amount of funding, because funding doesn't come without expectations.
Of course.
And whose expectations are those? They're the institution's expectations. And if they're handing you $100,000 and expecting results in a week, they're expecting incredibly specific results, which cannot actively include the lived realities of the communities that you're working in. It's just not possible, you know? I've got a little, it's a bit of a tragic story, but it's got a bit of South African humor in there. I live near a community called Bushbuck Ridge. And in Bushbuck Ridge, a NPO, NGO came in because they wanted to install sanitary systems, sewage systems, toilet systems, and so on and so forth. And this was something that was desperately needed by Bushbuck Ridge. It's an informal community that was originally started about 15 years ago by what are, I think, unfairly called squatters, so to speak. And basically what ended up happening is this project ended up getting pretty significant international funding. And what did? They built one toilet, and they took a bunch of pictures of this nice toilet, and they put it online, and then they got even more funding. But what they weren't capable of doing within those kinds of conventional expectations of people chucking a bunch of money at them was actually understand, first of all, the environmental regulations in that region, in that area. And Mpumalanga has a bunch of pretty specific and strict environmental regulations because it's where the Kruger National Park is. So that's a big part of it. Secondly, they weren't capable of acquiring or getting enough artisanal workers and trades into the community to build the infrastructure necessary to deliver, sanitary systems. And so today, sitting outside of Bushbuck Ridge, 10 years later, is what is basically a mountain of toilets. Like literally, it's a pile of toilets, guys. And so when new people want to come into Bushbuck Ridge and say, hey guys, we want to help you guys, right? They point to the pile of toilets and they say, no, we don't want your help. Because that's what we get when people like you come into our communities and try to help us. You know what I mean? And that for me is just a great example of, these kinds of misaligned expectations and requirements. And the only way to do it properly is to do it slow. That's my sense about it.
Yeah, I mentioned that Paulo Freire to you because what he did in Brazil with his literacy campaign, adult literacy, was first to go with a group of researchers, people from the community, what he calls a thematic investigation, to understand, how people live, what's important for them, what language they use, to validate their truths, to validate their experiences, not to throw away the experiences as invalid, but taking that into consideration, even in terms of the vocabulary they're learning. So they did they do the thematic universe, like what words they use, what vocabulary they use, even to create a literacy campaign. He was not just teaching them how to read, but how to read the world and be inserted and be critical about it. So, and that's pretty much what you're saying is not just having the funding, but go through that process of understanding from the side of the people who are going to be part of that project, or who are the beneficiaries, or who are going to be the agents of change.
Because giving a bunch of money never saved anybody. Like the money can be even more problematic. For example, here you get a lot of money, drug dealers around checking on social project. They want their part of the, it's getting very complicated as well. So
for sure.
And I was even talking about this with someone, like expecting, hoping, receiving funding. Okay, but then you're gonna have to create a proper document saying how much you're going to spend there, because maybe the drug dealer, they will want 1% of it. To the social project I've been visiting, and we want to include the first methodology and the podcast production. You go in
NG Africa.
Oh, yeah, it's called NG Africa, and you go in there and you see the graffiti. Of the map, it means it belongs to them. And then you go to they have a gym for doing sport, You go there and there's like a bunch of money and a guy smoking a joint doing his sport.
Sitting on the table, that's it.
Play around, that's the reality. And you have to play around with this as well. So careful.
You gotta work through it. So I guess if there aren't any other immediate questions, I think I've got to close it off. Is that correct, Carolina? Do we still have some time?
Yes. Oh, we can still have more of a conversation, definitely. And thank you both for this marvelous presentation, and also to the audience for the questions. And before you read that, I'm going to ask both of you, the presenters today, the Artivism ambassador and presenter, what will be your key takeaway from today's event? As a meaning,
this is yours, Flo.
Yes, it's for both of you. But it's mainly a key takeaway for action.
You mean for me, like what I'm going to do from what we've been sharing on this call?
What would you leave the audience with as advice, a key takeaway for action for the audience, for them to put into practice from what you discussed today?
Learn how to listen and to analyze before opening your mouth too much and trying to do stuff.
That's a good one. Yeah. I think the other side of it is there's a lot of interest in the psychological side of social work, which is obviously critical and important. But the communities that I'm from, that I've been around, aren't interested in that bullshit. They need funding, they need emancipation. And of course, you know, from a kind of Western backed mindset, we're thinking and trying to focus on like psychological emancipation, but where is the material benefit? That's the question that's on the minds of the people that I speak to when I'm saying, hey man, you know, I'm trying to do this cool thing. They're asking, what's in it for me? And it's a fair question. And if you can't provide something easy to take away and easy to understand with regards to what's in it for the community, and they can't see relatively real benefits in terms of that in a short enough time frame for them to remain interested, the challenges abound is what I've been experiencing.
And not selling hope as well, because you can come with
That's
all
it.
the best intention and I want to do that, but if you create hope, it's just they already face so many
This is
challenges.
a pile of toilets, Flo. It's a pile of toilets, you know. That's it. That's it.
Yeah.
It's heartbreaking, but it's real, you know.
Yeah, especially given the history of all this that we've discussed, mainly from an ethnographical perspective and also throughout academia, and not only in recent decades, but throughout centuries, right? Therefore, it's a lot of ground to be built upon and reconstruct and so on and so forth. But hopefully, little by little, we'll find ways that at least in a micro, right, setting, we'll start that change that then will multiply in better systems that will become the macro level of transformation.
And those people from the favelas, when I'm asking them, what are your dreams? You know, like, what do you wish for your community? They never say, I want to be a billionaire, or I just want to get my life a little bit better. I just want to get my life better.
Get out of survival mode. Get out of survival mode. Like Pri said, you know, it's just like, I just want to, 10 years time, I want my daughter to benefit from the work that I'm doing. I want to see it grow. And I also want to get out of this grind, you know? And I can understand it.
And I believe Priscilla is here, right? She's here.
Sorry.
Is she with us? Yeah. Yeah, she is here.
Priscilla,
she wants to unmute and share with us. Yeah. Come on.
Não sei se você está ouvindo, Priscila, mas chegará que ela vai ser o rosto. Maybe she's with the kid as well. Who knows? Maybe
Could be that.
She got with the kids as well. Or the internet crashed. Who knows?
Nice.
Very nice. If you also like, feel free to then get in touch with me for moving forward, Flavia. If you want to have a call with Ron and me in the future. You muted.
Flavia, you muted.
Sorry, I'm sorry. I don't know if you check your LinkedIn account because I sent you a message via LinkedIn.
Nice.
And I put my email address as well. And I would love to get in touch with both you and Ronald as well to understand the process, because I've been for the last 35 years working on writing proposals, implementing things, managing teams. And now I'm like, okay, how can I use whatever this background and put into something that's really meaningful and art related? Because that's really what what I want to do, not what I have done.
Yeah, for sure. And also, of course, you know, like with Pri's project that we're trying to figure out how to publicize and push forward, please get in contact with us or Pri directly to try and see if we can make some magic there. You know, that's what other side's all about at the end of the day.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
Cool.
And she's big deal. Priscilla's big deal. She received like funds for taking part of training. I forgot the name, but with the Obama's wife. She does
Michelle.
So she does she already got those kind of stuff going on, and anything related to Black women. And she's all about Black women and Black community. So and well-being, anything that can help her.
Health and well-being.
Yeah,
that's it. So
very quickly, I
Mhm.
just want to say, whatever your
Yes.
artivism is, right? Whatever your art, media, whatever you're working, you really need to know your community, right? You need to know it, not just be this outsider focusing on just what's wrong with the community, but the promise, right? Look at the promise,
Yeah.
not
Yeah.
what's, don't focus on all the wrongs, but also
Mhm.
the promise of what it could be, what it should be, not just your lens and such, which you're then
Exactly.
sharing with so many
Yeah.
people,
Yeah.
misinforming even. This was great. Thank you. But I'll give it back to you, Ronald.
For sure. So, Florian, thank you for being our artivist today. And next Monday, April 27th at 4:30, forensic artist Joe Mullins will discuss the case involving the reconstruction of an unidentified individual recovered by Pima County Medical Examiner's Office, likely deceased while crossing the border. Artivism also has an open call for artworks for its annual multi-venue exhibition. Please visit the website to submit your work. For more information on this and all of the series' past and upcoming events, please visit the website www.adelphi.edu/artivism. Follow Artivism on Facebook, Instagram at Artivism for Shared Humanity, that's the number 4, or simply Google Artivism Initiative. It's pretty easy to find. The YouTube channel is Artivism for Shared Humanity. Also, if you would like to get more involved in this ongoing initiative, please contact the Artivism team. They're incredible, clearly. I would now like to ask if there are any other questions. Please use the raised hand. I guess our questions are around about done there, I guess. But if there are any others, I mean, we've got the table. We'll take it if we've got the time.
How beautiful is this being said with this South African accent, right?
So Florian and Priscilla, I put my email on the chat. So
Super nice.
if
Thank
you
you so
don't
much
see
for
the
the
LinkedIn,
welcome.
and I might
Thank
be going to Rio sometime soon because my father lives in Recife and I have a cousin in Rio as well.
And Ron is passing by soon as well, so
Yeah.
we're all going to be there.
Should
Super
be
nice.
there in about July.
And
Oh,
anybody?
okay.
I have a question for you guys. Anyway,
Please.
well, all of you go in the call here. Well, we've mentioned a lot of from the community perspective and the, say, for example, in this case, the filmmakers coming on to the community to do a project, right? But what have you seen from the government perspective? How are they intervening or not, or actually putting obstacles for this sort of activities to occur or not to occur?
I've seen a lot of fundraising. They have a lot of programs to receive money. So that's how they have, like, they're really known for this kind of initiative when you can, it's called the Rouanet law. It's a law where you can apply and get fundings. The prefecture town hall as well is invest in several projects. The corruption is very high though. Like the corruption here in Brazil is crazy high. But what I see from government, they have some school project as well. But when I'm walking around favelas, I don't see them much, to be honest. I don't see
This
them
is the
so.
complexity, right? Like, kind of coming into the space again as an outsider from South Africa, seeing some of the work that Flo's done, communicating with ONG Africa and some of the organizations that Flo's been collaborating with. What's been really inspiring for me is the scale and the variety of government funding that is available for projects in Brazil. But like anticipating it, being from the global south myself, corruption is significant and real. And some of it's coming from the government itself, but some of it's, again, coming from organized crime. These are very difficult things to navigate around. We'll take funding from wherever it comes, but at the end of the day,
There is a limit.
I
There is a
think
limit.
there's a limit. There's a limit, of course. But at the end of the day, I think the closer we can get to self-funded initiatives, the more likely it is that we're going to be able to navigate around some of the significant obstacles, especially where, like I was saying earlier, those obstacles come from success rather than failure. A lot of government oversight, a lot of optics on a project that's just trying to establish itself, just trying to get its roots into the ground. I think can sometimes create tension that's complex, difficult, complicated. We're already operating inside of a context which is difficult, complex, complicated, So it's difficult for me to unpackage. I personally hold a lot of skepticism for government funding. I mean, we're seeing what's happening in the world at large right now. Flavia, was mentioning it right at the beginning of the call. If we're seeing large government institutions paying the bills, so to speak, the moment politics shifts, the bills don't get paid. What do we do then? These are the questions I'm asking myself,
And I have a little story. So I was on a motorbike Christmas time this year, 2025, and I'm like, okay, I've seen like you have some Christmas decoration there, Rosinia, Christmas decoration. How do you get those decorations? And I was asking, is it from the state? Is it? And the guy was like, no way, it's from the state. It's the drug dealers. They're investing money to create Christmas decoration on favela. This is, at this point,
complex, right? That's it. It's like there isn't a lot of one-wayness about things, a significant number of the smaller local projects in like rural communities like Bushbuck Ridge, for instance, are happening through taxi mobs, because taxi mobs hold a significant amount of political and capital interests in these communities. And where a person's trying to, for instance, build a community center, one of the first people that they'll speak to is, the head of the local taxi mob. Why? Because this person has a lot of resources and a lot of connections. And in a certain sense, they're viewed as an esteemed member of that particular society, even though a part of their business is, call it illicit, illegal, whatever it might be. It's complex. How do we navigate around that? Should we navigate around that? Should we confront it? I don't think I'm in a position to be confronting it. You know what I mean? So, yeah, a lot of questions to chew on at the end of the day.
And who to trust?
It's a great question, Carolina. Thank you.
Right.
No, thank you. Thank you all for making the time, for being here, for sharing your experiences from so many places around the world. Because if you think about it, we've had people not only with our presenters, that is including France, Brazil, of course, South Africa, with us, Greece, Costa Rica. We had other people on the call
Zimbabwe,
from around the world. Right. And that's why Artivism is this wonderful platform where we share initiatives that are occurring supposedly around the world, but yet when we converse, it's so identical that it could be in our own backyard. And that's why we have to come together to brainstorm, to just ponder about all these matters and how to multiply that positive impact that we're all trying to do, right? It's not about geography or distances, but it's right about coming together and closing those gaps. And like Florian said earlier, building those bridges, right? That was a really good symbolism there of building bridges, even with this part that we were just discussing with government and criminal crime and all that, and how to bridge it instead of making bigger the gap, right? We'd like to. We might have to do a part 2, definitely. So stay tuned. Keep us posted on all of your upcoming projects. I would like to see if something flourishes with this connection here with Ms. Flavia also. And just as a reminder, as Ronald, the link is on the website. It's about how would your future self feel about the decisions that you're doing today? And how do those decisions that you're making today in the long run also affect society as a whole? There are a lot to think about there, and how to make it into it could be a visual, like a painting, a drawing, a photograph. It can also be a poem. It can be a film. Many expressions, whatever comes from the heart.
Carolina, you're breaking up.
Yes, I think she'll probably come back
that
on.
Idea, that will be part of the open call. Adelphi University, and also Goddess Mallory's at Teachers College, Columbia University. Thank you to Dr. Lake and all the marvelous artivists that have come through this platform for 5 years.
Oh, yeah. Carolina's connection is it was off a little bit. Thank you everyone for being here today. We look forward to seeing you again. There will be a part two, we hope. As Carolina said, it may not have come up as clearly. Let us know if you'd like us to share any of your work on our newsletter, in our emails. So thank you. Thank you, Carolina. Be well, everyone.
You are.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Thanks so
Thank
much,
you so much.
everybody.
Thank
Thanks for
you.
joining us.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, Florian, to be in my city.
Tamo junto, tamo junto.
Eu vou te ver lá.
Por favor, tô esperando para você.
Beautiful.
Bye-bye.
So I'm leaving,
Cheers,
right?
everyone.
This is the end.
Yeah, we're disappearing.
I'm leaving. Thank
We
you,
have
guys.
more
Bye.
people
Talk
to
soon.
connect
Cheers,
with,
everyone.
definitely.
Exactly.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.